Yo, what's going on? It is the One More Thing daily updates about all the cool things going on in the One More Thing universe, because there's always lots of cool things going on in the One More Thing universe. But today, I just have a simple question for you. Or is it simple? What is old school? What is your old school? If I say old school to you, what instantly comes to mind? Because what's coming to my mind is different from what comes to other colleagues' minds. And this has got me fascinated.
It's just music that transports you or makes you wish you could transport.
With music, there's old school flavours that are still being produced today.
Yeah, just music and being there, being together, like with the people you love.
Just the things that shaped my childhood to me.
Old school for me is all about those foundational sounds.
That's what I consider old school hardcore.
The roots of everything and the real sound, the rawness and the authenticity and the first ideas that were later reenacted by the modern ones.
There's quite a few people, all different people from the crew, all contributing. So instead of me just rabbiting away, let's go straight in and find out what some of the other team are saying.
When you say old school, I think you've also got to take in mind what generation are you in, because something that is old school to somebody is not old school to somebody else. So yeah, old school flavors. I mean, with music, there's old school flavors that are still being produced today. There's tracks that are coming out that have old school flavors, from my opinion. So I'm going to sign out by saying one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite films, Rock and Roller, and it's said by Lenny: "There's no school like the old school, and I'm the fucking headmaster." In the One More Thing school, you're definitely the headmaster, and I'm maybe more of like a prefect. But yeah, old school.
I don't know about headmaster, but maybe you could pass as a prefect with those glasses. I think Marc has nailed it on the head there in terms of the generational divide. Now, this is fascinating because for a certain age group of people, like old school is instantly a connotation of a very, very distinctive ravey hardcore sound. It certainly is for me, and it was such a phenomenon, and things moved at such a rapid pace in those first 5 years of the evolution of electronic music and dance music between 1989 and 1994 that you already had old school rooms within 5 years of a genre. Now, that's how rapidly things were moving within electronic music. Now, I think anything within 5 years now could never be deemed as old school, really. Marc also has a really, really interesting point in terms of old school flavours, that you can still have old school flavours in the mix, and old school sentimentality or the essence of old school in something, even if it's a contemporary creation. That's really interesting. Now, speaking of the connotations, I asked Scartip for his take on old school, and this is what he came back with.
Hey Dave, Scartip here. Old school hardcore to me is epitomised by one album, The Prodigy Experience, 1992 I think it was. This is purely because of my age, but anything that came before jungle and happy hardcore, and before those two genres loosely put splintered off into their own direction, which everything was called old school hardcore, wasn't it? So like SL2, Prodigy of course, oh god, loads of others. I can't even think of Alternate, that sort of stuff. That's what I consider old school hardcore. See you in a bit.
Gonna need to find another hiding place in his house now he's busted that little spot in amongst his plants. So Scartip's instantly gone to hardcore. My question to everybody was, what is your perception? What is your take on old school? When I say old school, what do you think of? He's gone in on hardcore straight away, which is really interesting. I mean, Scartip is a few years younger than me, but instantly that's what's come to his mind there, which is super interesting. There's a proper genre there, but where else do we go now? Let's see what Annelies is saying.
Hi, so when I think about old school, I immediately go to like R&B and rap. I don't know, something about the world old school makes me think of that.
Whoa. Let me just stop Annelies there. So this is really interesting. So Scartip, he was talking about hardcore straight away. Instantly to my mind, when I think of old school, I do think of hardcore. But for Annelies now, it's R&B and rap. So this is really, really interesting. And I'm sure there's a correlation in terms of the popularity and the influence of a genre and where you are at in certain points of your life. But as Marc said, like, this is a complete generational thing. Everybody's old school is different.
Because, I don't know, it's like going back to those roots, going back to like taking your friends, seeing the artists that you like the most, maybe like Tupac. Yeah, I don't know. Something about old school to me screams like, yeah, just music and being there, being together, like with the people you love. And yeah, it takes it back to like the very meaning, like not the very meaning, the very like, yeah, the very meaning of music and just getting people together. And yeah,
the very meaning of music and getting people together. So this is the essence. Like, maybe old school means nostalgia in a way. Then it's definitely connotations of it, even if you were born at a different type of time to the music. And this is something that Lauren brings up, and I find this absolutely fascinating. So this is Lauren's take on old school now.
You're right, Dave. Old school music to me is music that makes you wish you were born decades before you were actually born. There's so many times I listen to music from like 40 years ago and I'm just like, what would it be like if I was there, type of thing? And it's just music that transports you or makes you wish you could transport. What's time travel? Anyway, my song that I'm obsessed with at the moment is The Cure, Let's Go to Bed. Sad.
Okay, wow. So now we've got the whole kind of transportation of music and old school. The idea that music can make you wonder what it would have been like to have been alive at a different time. And I get this a lot. I get this a lot when I'm listening to like the kind of 60s and the 70s rock that my parents kind of grew up on and played to me incessantly and brought me up on, in a way. That kind of taking you back to a different time, taking you to an era that you could just about imagine. You can see in video footage or see in photos, but you weren't quite there yourself, but you can imagine what it must have been like, because this is what the 90s now feels like to anybody in the 2020s. That's what the 60s felt like to a lot of people in the 90s, which is mind-blowing. But music stays consistent, really. So what are our two new mentees saying as well? We've got two new members of the crew, and I'd be very interested in hearing what they have to say as well. First up, let's hear what Tom has to say.
Yes, Dave. Tom here. Old school for me is all about those foundational sounds that shape the music I love today. Even though it's a bit before my time, I'm drawn to that raw, stripped back vibe of early drum and bass, 90s old school hip hop, and even like the first garage sounds. There's just something timeless about the sampling and the grooves and the whole energy of it. Is almost like a blueprint for so much of what came after. It's not just about the sound itself, it's a part of the music's roots and what got me hooked in the first place.
Okay, so Tom is talking about the blueprints. Tom again refers to those original genres there: D&B, jungle, UK garage, hip hop, like these kind of original foundation movements and the pioneers in that sense, like what set the scene for where we are today. And that kind of acceptance, really, that's like a broader kind of musical lineage, if you like. And this is something that's absolutely huge to us at One More Thing. Age diversity and passing music on through the generations, passing experiences on through the generations. But like it's everybody sharing ideas. It's everybody kind of being part of, being proud, owning their own era, but knowing that there's carriages in the front of the train and there's carriages behind them in the train, and it's always moving. The train is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And everybody's name for the train is different. Okay, so we've got two more really interesting takes. And I don't know which way to go because they both make complete sense and they're both great ways to wrap up on. But I'm going to give you Glitchgirl first of all, because Glitchgirl comes through with a really interesting philosophy.
Hello, Dave. This is Glitchgirl. For me, old school is like the roots of everything and the real sound, the rawness and the authenticity and the first ideas that were later reenacted by the modern ones. And I like the feel of the not so much produced and not so much stylized sound compared with now, that it's all about like the quality of the production. It's like movies. In the past the ideas were better and it was more grainy, but in the future they are more HD and the ideas are more kind of reused and reused, and maybe it was better to just do a different thing and not to remix that song again.
Okay, so this is really, really interesting. Now, this is a line. I feel like that is a line there, really, in terms of old school being like the original concentrated form, and then over time it gets diluted and diluted and diluted with other technicalities or other kind of maybe unnecessary filters. I don't know, because I love every time that I've ever been active in. I've really, really enjoyed. But I mean, the message is clear there, like old school is the origin, but maybe do something new, but that kind of original kind of fire. So that's super, super interesting. There's only one more person left for me to ask, and what's really interesting is that she actually mentions an artist which inspired me to do this video today. So please meet Shenice. She is another new member to the team who I'm mentoring now, and I'm really, really buzzing about that. Tom and Shenice joined us literally the other day, and it's great to have even more people on the team. So this is Shenice. She's also the youngest in the team as well. So this is what Shenice has to say about old school and what her take is.
Hi Dave, it's Shenice, and to me old school is anything that I grew up hearing. So a range of things, from my dad playing Fleetwood Mac and Bob Dylan to my siblings playing 50 Cent, Eminem, Christina Aguilera, or having reggae, lovers rock on the radio. Just the things that shaped my childhood to me.
Wow, so there we go. Another fresh take on the old school. It's musical inheritance. It's what you grew up with, but what you inherited from your family there, as far as Shenice is concerned. And what's fascinating there is that she's actually mentioned the act who's the reason why I'm doing this video today. So as you watch this, if you're watching it live, when it goes live, I'll be driving back from the Royal Albert Hall, having taken my dad to see Bob Dylan. So that's really, really apt. Like, she had no idea that's why. None of the people who I've asked have any idea why I'm doing this video. I've literally just said, tell me your flavour of old school, tell me your take on old school, because I'm fascinated by it. It actually came about in a conversation with Paul T and Edward Oberon when we did the interview at Sun and Bass, and it's something I've thought about quite a lot of since then, but something I think about a lot anyway, as somebody who's like I'm in my middle ages, like, you know, I've been through a lot of musical generations, and I'm now working with people a lot younger than me. And so it's understanding their relationship with music. Like, we're going on a massive, massive musical journey with One More Thing, and it is all about age diversity and passing things through the generations and sharing perspectives, sharing energies and takes on certain things. My musical knowledge is going to be very, very different to Tom's or Shenice's or Marc's or anybody else's, and that's the same for you as well. So this is why I'm interested in what your take on old school is. There once was a time for a certain generation where we did have blinkers and we all knew what old school meant. But if you're a hip hop head, then old school hip hop meant old school hip hop. If you're if you're an old school rock fan, then old school rock was old school rock, and I'm fascinated by that. I really am. So that's been the topic of today. I want this to start a discussion. Please let me know what your old school is. Put some examples of what your old school is. Like, are you like Scartip? Do you just go instantly to hardcore, or are you much more philosophical about things, or do you just want to time travel like Lauren does? Like, this is the beauty of music. This is the beauty of being different ages, and this is the beauty of One More Thing. I'm going to wrap this up now because it's been a long and rambling one, but it's not just been me rambling. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed some input from the community, the One More Thing team, and our network of amazing and talented peers. If you're interested in things that are happening with One More Thing at the moment, then please do check out the video that is going live at 7 p.m. tonight. That's our Run da Riddim video, which we're really, really excited about. Obviously made in honour and and tribute to Leighton and his friends as well, Joe and Lawrence, who he sadly lost 2 years ago. It's a video that we've taken a long time over and that we feel really, really proud of. It's a very special tribute and a documentary to a talent who has set in place a legacy which a whole family and crew of friends are all looking around. And once again, we have that age diversity because the label is being run by his dad, but definitely being powered by people of Leighton's generation as well. So please do check that out and support that, and support us if you can. Like, subscribe, support us on Patreon, and do all of those cool things. Thank you so much to everybody who watches these videos or any of our other content. This is One More Thing. We'll be back on Monday. Ciao.